Guys, we did 1 and 2. Just again quickly on the design. The design should be a problem typical of what they deal with. But as I said, it's important to note that it's systems, engineering works, components, products, and processes. So process design is perfectly good enough. Also, you should take into account the social, economic, legal, health, safety, and environment impacts in that design, whichever affects them. For example, something that's inside might not have environmental, or particularly social, and social is often, and I use the example of the guys in the municipality who've got to go and put in meters and got to go and put in substations. They've got to go and chat to the locals, make sure they're going to cut their power off. You know, we're going to be without power for a day while we're doing it. That type of stuff. So it's vital that we get that concept over to these guys. Any questions on this one? 4, notice investigations, experience, and data analysis. You're not building something, you're not designing something here, you're designing an experiment. See, conducting to cover that outcome. So you don't have to design a widget here or solve a problem, but you must be able to provide that information to be able to do it. Very important. Differs from a design that the object is to produce knowledge and understanding, not a product. Okay. Not really. You could do this in your final in your project if he has to design and develop a system to test it or to do something like that. That could fall under. This is really what we call. If you really look at this is really, in other terms, research methodology. What you've got to do when in your research. You know how you start your research proposal, and then you get onto it. So people confuse this, and the one I'm looking at now, they're designing. They've given the guys all the things to design instead of designing an experiment. Method tools, as I mentioned earlier, this is now the use of computing, and very, very important. I mean, sorry, the wrong button. This is very important here. Very important that these guys can use packages, but here it's use now. It's not necessarily learning the package, because most of them don't know the ins and outs of these packages. They're just using them. We've got a very interesting thing that's sticking its head out is in civil engineering. Civil engineering today is becoming so computer package driven that there is a need now for people with civil background to develop these products and these packages. You know, systems analyst approach. And they can't get registered as a professional engineer because the civils say you've got to design a bridge or you've got to design something. Now, I've started working on this, and we've got to get SICE behind us. We had the same problem with electrical 20 years ago when computing first started. But if you look at a computer engineer, it's basic electronics with far more specialization. They've got to know the electronic background, the fundamentals of it.
I can use many examples, but we all know about this Boeing that just went down. It's 787, 2 of them. The reason they went down is because of a piece of software that was not designed correctly and it wasn't tested correctly. Now, is that an engineering problem or IT problem?
That's an engineering problem.
And that has design in it.
And this is why, if you look at the document on the reservation of work, or the so-called Yeah, it was the reservation work that's in our Act. I had a big fight that software is also health and safety. It's just much safety as a normal engineer, and therefore they need to be registered to fall under the code of conduct and the code of ethics.
Well, there's many examples where you
I can give you stacks of them.
And one of the things that we are very heavy into is the design aspect of that software.
Oh, yes.
Or the system.
You see, but that's using engineering principles. You're using the back.
It's just a different medium. That's all.
It's all. It's a different medium.
Yeah, but I think you're forgetting one thing. Software engineering, if you look at the definition, is application engineering principles in the life of software.
Precisely.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So it's engineering.
So software
But-
itself, the coding itself.
But coding, plain coding, there are people that just do coding, nothing else. That's not engineering.
That's what engineering.
So there's no problem. No problem outside, but the civils, we're still having a massive problem. Anyway, that's another issue. But you see,
Can
it's...
I just say something on what you're saying?
It is there in the Wikipedia or IEEE, it is written there. So you know, there's nothing to say, it's written.
You know, if you say that coding can't be part of engineering, then bricklayers and all the people that are doing the manual work for civil projects or mechanical projects, then they are also not part of engineering.
No, sorry.
They're not engineers.
Maybe I'm misrepresenting. What I'm saying is purely coding is not engineering.
But there
If
is
they don't do anything more than just coding,
there isn't such a thing.
there used to be a lot of data back. Guys that just did coding in companies did nothing more than that. I ran it. I had it in my section where we had a whole bunch of coders that did nothing but coding. They didn't do the analysis. They didn't do this. They were given the job. Just code this for me, and that's what I'm referring to. But no, it's there, and it must be. And again, you see this one: economics, management, health and safety. This is a massive one. And I can assure you, it's literally impossible to assess this GA. You need about 3 or 4 different modules to do. So don't let me put you off. And this is why, if you look at in your document, you've got the BEng, the BEng Tech, the diploma. You'll see that the BEng has gone to 11. They've taken some of this and they've taken some of 7 and made another. Okay. But this will come here as well. Right, let's look at the next one. Professional technique. I think we've covered that. Sustainability and impact. This one's also, as I said, there's too much in here. That's why some of this was taken out and put into another outcome. But if you look at what you've got to take in, the social, workplace, physical factors must be appropriate. Evidence must include state, must encompass standards and documented practice, limited range, consequence. Sorry guys, I'm just warning you, it's difficult. It's society, economy, industrial, physical. Anyway, let's move on. Individual and team. This is another one that we have a lot of problems with generally. Terrific amount of problems. Sorry, my back's to the ladies here. Read it carefully. Individual, team, multidisciplinary working. A lot of people read this as multidisciplinary team working. It's not. But one of our universities has they do multidisciplinary teamwork. What they do is they take electrical, mechanical, civil guy, and they don't have industrial there. And then they get people from the accounting department, people from the HR department, and people from the legal department. They put them together as a team. And they say, okay, you've got to design something. Design a product. And that's their first semester. In the second semester, they scommel them all around, and then they say, okay, that product you developed, now develop a company to manufacture and market it. When they first get this, the students have a heart attack. After 3 months, the staff are having a heart attack because the students get so involved in this project they're not spending enough time on the other stuff. But anyway, it's an interesting concept, but it's not. All this means is, as I explained to somebody earlier, you electrical guy or mechanical good, electrical guys designing a cabinet for a power cabinet. Now he needs a mechanical guy. You've got to work with a mechanical guy to build the cabinet, design the cabinet. He's got to have a civil guy to design the car, the plinth that has got to go on. So what I'm saying is, as long as that's what you're trying to get awareness of, because in industry today, nobody works on their own anymore. It's all teamwork. And for them to understand others, and most possibly if they've got to go and talk to the HR department because of a social issue, or and that's what you're trying to get into. So teamwork is generally a team project. They give them a project as a team, 3 or 4 guys. Again, very difficult to assess. There's somebody, as we were saying earlier, you generally find one person does all the other work and all the other watches. So you've got to have very, very good teamwork between them, and also peer judgment assessments and other things. But it works. Even when I did my degree way back in the dark and distant age, we had a project. There were 3 of us on a project. One had to design the transmitter, one had to do the receiver, another one had to do the stuff we were looking at, measurement side. Okay, so again, the projects, you've got a planning, setting objectives. We were talking about the rubric just now. There's typical. You'd look at that. Has he planned? Has he set objectives? Has he set operational models? Has he, tick, 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 yes, no. And then comes the judgment. Any comments, questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is it a reasonable graduate attribute to apply to a diploma-level student which is not in Tech Level 6?
Yes. But it's a much lower level, eh? It's a much lower level. Because
Your very first statement says an understanding of engineering management principles, which implies you have to have a management module in your course somewhere.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. That's why this has been taken out. This management is now in the new Ecsa level outcome 11. But the guy must understand a bit of the principles of management to manage himself. We don't expect this guy to be a manager, a manager in charge of 100 people. Manage himself, to manage a small team, set targets and this type of stuff. Because once he goes out there, he'll work in a team. So even if they don't become experts, at least that they understand the concept of what are they required to do when they go out. And this has come down through international, all over. As what one person said, they wanted to teach us engineers to be human beings instead of educated barbarians, so that we can do something with the social side. Okay? Stop me if it's going too far. Independent learning. Again, this is just to get the student to understand that they don't know everything now. As one of my professors once said to me, he said, what you guys must realize when you leave here, you know nothing. You've got to go out and then find out from other guys how to do it. So again, it's, and often this is done by, in a course somewhere, you give them an assignment. Go and find out something about something you're not covering in the course. And come back and tell the class about it, or something like that. There are various ways you can do this. Professionalism. This one is also a little bit difficult, but again, you need course studies. What is the profession of engineering? Who's who in the zoo? What are our responsibilities and norms of engineering? Particularly, taking responsibility for what you do, which is one of the most important things. And this is why when we were doing that work reservation, it's because if you look at it, the engineer is the only profession, if I'm talking engineer, I mean engineer, technician, technologist, is the only profession where you're accountable. No other profession are you accountable. Medical doctor buries his mistakes. When we make a mistake, hundreds of people die when the airplane falls out the sky. So we're the only one that are held accountable for. Very seldom. There's a medical doctor now, I see, because he's had I don't know how many patients dying and that they're looking at. But generally, count it. What happens if he makes a mistake? Company goes bang. So what? So it's very important, this one. It's a very important concept to get out of this. And usually this forms part of that communication HR type course.
In the end statement there, I see membership of professionals.
Yeah, again, they should be taught what the engineering profession is. There in South Africa, there's the Engineering Council, and that's responsible to the government for the health and safety of people. And then you've got the professional bodies who are responsible for keeping up CPD, keeping up and that type of stuff. So that's what the engineering, to understand it, that's what it is. That's all. Very simple. But you'd be surprised how many go out and they don't even know there's an Institute of Mechanical Engineering. One of the biggest issues with registration is you've got to re-register every 5 years. And you've got to prove CPD. Where do you get it from? From those professional bodies. So it's somewhere in the course it needs to be introduced. Workplace practice. Now this, of course, is your P1, P2 at the moment. But read it carefully. You see, while we say this is specific to workshop practice, other attributes might be demonstrated simultaneously. Now, one of the interesting things, if you look at the majority of the BEng programs, they don't have this in it, but it's a DP for them to work in a workshop and a work in industry, at least for 2 months every year of their long vacs. So it's a DP thing there, it's not a, whereas it is here. One of the biggest things of the workplace is to students to learn they've got to come to work on time, they can't just mess around when they want to, they've got to be decently dressed and you know, the normal work ethics. Right, any questions on GAs?
Thank you actually for highlighting some of the details about these temporary packages. My understanding is that one, to see how this needs to work, the biggest challenge that I face is actually how to report about the attainment of these attributes. Now, I understand that we have cases where people actually have their own creativity into articulating these. Could you maybe have a few highlights or examples of how people manage to show evidence? Because the whole thing is building a portfolio that is actually showing how specific students address and reassess on these.
We were looking at it just before lunch. He's got an excellent start of a rubric to do this.
Right.
I'd be grateful if you could pass it around amongst your colleagues. The basic idea is you look at this. Okay? Range statement. Theoretical learning, problem where student gets small directed groups. Okay, no, not this so much. But if we go back to this one. You have a marking schedule, much like your percentage mark, but no marks on it. Has a code of conduct been covered somewhere? Yes or no? Does he understand the professional societies? Yes or no? Is he available with the technical practice and that? So you draw up a small marking sheet and it's yes or no, yes or no, yes or no.
Okay.
Now you need a standard one for the university. Generally, most universities have this, all these, and all the departments do it.
Okay. Do I understand that on top of our normal assessment of the module or course learning outcomes, we have to start making some bookkeeping as to those specific things.
Precisely.
So,
So for a module, you've got your course assessment, and you have your GA assessment if it's been assessed in that module. You don't have to do it for all, but it's the modules you use to assess GAs that should be there. There should be a marking, type of marking sheet, an assessment sheet, let's call it, and at the end, yes or no.
that's right. So, my question actually also is that, I mean, the one cross point that we made at some stage was, is a student that managed to show that, they wrote all their tests, at least the expectations are very clear about that. Student knows they need to study, they will write a test, they will pass a test. Now, here's the student coming, they passed all the test. Now, I tell the student, but I'm not satisfied with this, let's graduate to get the form. We cannot get to that level where we're not ready for graduating. How do we
Okay. This is generally done, the first 1 or 2 lectures at the start of term is spent by each, on each module on the GA for that module. What they're looking for, how we're going to assess it, and that if you don't meet it, you're going to fail. Very important that those students inform. And it's generally done in the first or second lecture of that course. And it must be, of course, in that study guide. You see.
The reason I find actually this very challenging is when I have a subject that the students actually come back to me with very clearly set kind of expectation. This is what was browsing the content, this was the expectation, this is what you were supposed to deliver. I can still sit in disputes. This is very tangible, it's kind of my feeling.
Now you see, if you start right from first year, and in your first year and your first couple of semesters, you show them while you're going, this is how you're developing it. This is developing you for that later. And that you introduce the concept of this exit level outcome or graduate attribute to the student, that irrespective if he gets 100% and he doesn't meet a graduate output, he doesn't get his degree, period.
Just curiosity sake, do we have any, at this stage that since we started looking into the graduate attribute, do we have some, let's say, institutions that actually can showcase their success story about assessing graduate attributes that we can maybe benchmark with?
We can't do it because one of the things I've told you before is confidentiality. We're not allowed to do that at Ecsa. But there's nothing wrong with you, through your contacts, if you're dealing, getting hold of an institution that is good and arrange some meetings with them. And I'm sure they'll be only too happy to do that. I mean, you used to have those conferences around the country every year, when, particularly the electricals, every year to share their syllabuses and that. That's what I'd recommend you do. Get your dean to contact one of the other deans and arrange a workshop between you. And I'm sure they'll be quite happy to give you their marking schedules and their marking stuff that they've got.
I could just see some possible one show depending on the graduate attributes and the SOCs on it.
No, but you've got to, what you've got to do is, A, you must write that into your study guide. And B, what a lot of them have been doing, they have a DP included in the exam, and the DP is passing the graduate attribute. So if you don't pass the graduate attribute, you get less than 50% for that and fail the subject. And the HRC can't complain about that. So, there are many ways of skinning a cat. Now, one of the other things that's most important on the graduate attribute is that Ecsa does not lay down graduate attribute criteria. No way. They'll tell you what to do. They say what they want. It's up to you. There's no one way of doing it. It doesn't way. You must pick the one way that suits you best. How are you going to assess that? I know I had many an argument with Terry Stidworthy and a lot of guys. They want to know in the documents you must write typical assessment criteria. No way. You must decide how you want to do it, provided it doesn't stop. That's what we want to see. And look, listen, the Ecsa is also learning. If you can come up with a better way of doing it, great. But I think it's very crucial that you are not told to jump over the hoop. You're told you must get through the hoop. That's it. As I said, your self-study, and this is where a lot of guys are slipping. Table 5, I think it is, for that. You are asked to say where the graduate is assessed, how the attribute is assessed, what performance do you consider to be satisfactory, and what is the consequence of not getting it. Now you have a table of this for every graduate attribute. The method of assessment are valid, and this is what the assessing team will look at. Is that valid? Does it demonstrate or not demonstrate? That's what they want to see. And in relation to criterion 3, is the education geared up to develop this? Here's this table I was talking about, and you need this for every GA. And this is where often you get here, what is satisfactory performance? 50% pass mark. Yeah, it's where, what course, how are you doing it? If you've got a rubric or you're doing this, or what are you doing? What is satisfactory? And then what's the consequence of not fail the subject or repeat or something like that? And you've got this for all of them. There's an example of that we put in here. This is very important. See what I told you, GA4 is conduct investigation of well-defined problems through locating, searching, selecting relevant data. It's all there. The definitive point of GA assessment here is in the course XYE 301, the research project. This is from a university, by the way. It's a typical example. This course is used to assess GA6 as well. How's this? The student working with a fellow student is required to undertake a research project assigned from a list provided. All assignments are to be vetted by the course committee for compliance with the expected level of problem solving. Each student writes up an individual report indicating the individual contribution to the report and oral examination. Now they've got here what's satisfactory. The assessment required to do reflect on, identify the, plan the work, survey. So you have a little rubric to check that. Has he done it? Has he done it? Fine. Marking sheet. And is it good or bad? And the above criteria assessed on approved 5-point scale. Adequate 3 rating are expected against each one of these. And then outcome 6 is more detailed. But you see the type of thing that you need to develop. Questions, comments?
Yes, but this one, how different is it from saying 50%? It is 50%.
If he gets below satisfactory there, you fail.
You know the things, so that it's acceptable. So it's like a 50%.
Yeah, but your 3 is 50% on the whole course. This one here is more than 50% on each individual item.
So if you get anything less than 50, then you cannot.
This is what this university chose. And it's acceptable. You see, 50% pass means he answered question 1 and 2, but he didn't answer question 3 and 4, and question 3 and 4 might cover this GA. And he didn't even answer them, where you've put that question in to check them. That's your problem with 50% mark on the project, on a course exam. Here, it's 50% on all the items that he needs to pass. One of the universities I know has a 7-point scale, and the 4 is still not acceptable. Theirs is 5 or above. So they're going to something like 60% above for each item. That answer your question? It's totally different than the 50% for the whole subject. Let's look at another one. Look at this one. And these are genuine cases, guys. This is from Binge. So you see here, it's engaging in independent learning. In the 4 compulsory final year courses and all permitted electives, 3 must be taken by each student. It requires a mini project on a topic not covered in the course, contact time to be done individually. In other words, it's course material that there's no time to do, or they're not going to cover, and they expect the student to do them on their own. A mini project on a topic, right? The assessment instrument used explicitly requires the scope and analysis of the literature survey. And again, you've got that. Did he do literature survey? Did he do this? Did he do that? Did he do the other things? Complete and satisfactory performance of the course assignment is a prerequisite for entry to final exam. So it becomes a DP. And within each course project, the critical outcome is performing the survey, the analysis, using the findings, solving the problem. And that's how they assess that one. Any comments? Somebody looks very worried. You know how much work you got, right? Sorry, I'm being nasty. You see?
To me, this seems to be more geared towards continuous assessment. The guy doesn't do it right, you send him back until he finally makes it.
Well, in a way. But this means that he can't graduate unless he's proved that he can do that. And you can then prove that your graduates going out there can do this. Yes, sir.
I think there's a bit of a problem with what you say. Because for a student to graduate, he's got to meet the
Oh, yes.
DHE requirements.
Oh, yes. Agree with you.
The only thing that can't happen to him is that he can't graduate as an engineer. And that's the qualifier.
No,
he won't be able to register.
Look, we've had no problems anywhere in the country with any, and this has been going since 2010. The important thing is, in day one, they must be told that if they don't get the graduate attribute, they will fail. And every course...
What I'm saying is you can't say that.
You do. What they do, a lot of universities, if he doesn't meet that, he can't get 50%, he gets under 50%. Like a lot of universities, if you do a sub, you can't get more than 50%.
You can't.
You can't get more than 50%. So if you fail and you do a sub, your maximum mark you can get is 50%. That's common throughout the world. You look worried. No.
I'm just saying that
yeah, we had
the
trouble.
law of the country says that if he meets these DHE requirements, he has this diploma.
Yeah, but that
Ecsa
DH...
can't come and void that.
No, we don't. We just said that if he doesn't meet the GEA, he can't get 50% for that course. Really.
He can't get
50% for that course. So he can't pass it. But you've got to write it into your documentation. You can't just tell them that at the end. And the whole thing is you've got to bring those students all the way through, understanding that without a GA guy, slush.
I think the problem you're going to have is there's some of our students that are not going to meet these requirements. That's the problem.
Then they shouldn't graduate. Do you agree with me? You know, I'm passionate about keeping up our standard. We are world class. Our degrees are known to be world class. We must keep it that way. We can't let ourselves. Which one? Yeah. Which a PN one?
The one that still is standard for one piece of which will
The reason, and look, this is worldwide. This is not a South African invention. This is an international thing. The GAs give confidence that the professionally orientated objectives of the program are being met. That you are turning out an engineering graduate. That you are turning a guy who's competent. Hence the insistence that every student must be assessed in every attribute. Fulfillment of the attributes is not automatically ensured by a 50%. Now I know most universities have introduced this into their rules that if they don't meet the GA, they can't get 50% or more in that course. And then you've got no problem. There are many different ways of assessing it. Just choose and defend the methods you want. Table 4 is an essential planning tool, and Table 3 is valuable in designing and depicting the Right. Let me go back here. We're running out of time, but I do want to just go through. You've got to fill this information in. On that criterion 3, that the program must provide an effective teaching and learning towards this. Where are the assessments done? Are they done? Is it clear? Is there the teaching and learning strategy? Suitable learning opportunities are provided. The program is effectively coordinated. Not every lecture goes off on his own and does his own thing. That the learning process encourages independent learning. That it's just not route work all the time. That your teaching methods are maintained to encourage active participation. That the learning progress of students is appropriate and is monitored. So they want to see that. What academic support is provided for the students through a structured. One of the universities I know, they have they've got a special department that monitors the students throughout. And as soon as a student starts dropping and he's not keeping up to it, he's falling back, he gets invited to go to see them, and they've got full support behind them to be able to support them. Often you find it's not necessarily the professional side, often the home situation, family situation, or something like this, so you can pick this up early to handle it. And it's working very, very effectively. Program is effectively coordinated. The program is working to produce that graduate and not going on. And particularly that the HR or the communication people are teaching stuff you don't want, or the science people are not doing it. So it's properly coordinated. Learning process, as I said, and is appropriately monitored. Academic support. Feedback to the students. We had one university that they used to get the feedback after the final exam on their assignment that they'd done. Really, what good's that? Internal process, moderation. This now comes to moderation, that your internal moderation is good, and that all exit level assessments should be externally moderated. Teaching is monitored, continuous improvement. Student retention rate are monitored to identify and address any adverse factors. These are the questions you need that you need to write. We've covered that. I don't think we need to cover it. What program, what committees do you have to do this? What stage? Right. This is a one that nobody ever fills in properly. This is particularly there to assist you when you develop. Let's have a look at this one. Design. This is the exit level, okay, for this module. What does he need? He's got to have some linear algebra, he needs some solid mechanics, he needs fluids, he needs, right here, design 1, and then he can go up to design 2. So you can very easily look at your course and your curriculum. Is the guy following the right course to get through? And you can see the one I mentioned earlier where they dropped analog electronics. Immediately, if they'd have had something like this, they'd have seen it. Now, what most people do, and I haven't seen yours, is that they put down here develop, 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 develop. They don't show the arrows. This you need a big piece of paper. Ecsa doesn't get too upset if you don't, if you just show the development, that this is development for that ELO and that's a development for this one. But doing it this way, I can assure you, helps you a lot, particularly in your curriculum development and curriculum changes or anything. Because you're going to find now that you're not tied to the NATED document, that your curriculums are going to change phenomenally over the next few years. You're going to bring stuff in and you're going to take stuff out.
If there is a module, for instance, where you are assessing a GA, maybe it's a project. Like you said, they need a similar assessment or an assessment or modulation. If there is an exam again for that same module, do you need to take it out or do you determine?
No, it must be extremely moderated. That was the problem where I mentioned where the guy was, he repeated it, but it was not documented, and then all of a sudden he's shown on that he's failed, and all of a sudden he's now passed. You need that evidence.
But what is the purpose? Because in the exam you are not assessing, maybe you are developing.
No. External moderation is only for ELO subjects, or what your university does.
I'm saying there is a module here where you assess that GA using the project. But there is also an exam. You are not assessing within the exam.
Then it needs to be moderated, whatever your university wants. Don't forget, you've got a university moderation policy.
So the exam you can do it internally, but the project must be sent outside.
But that's why we say every exit level, wherever it's an exit level, needs to be externally moderated. But I think your university will call for that to be moderated. I don't think they'll let it go through.
Yes, but internally, because it's not the...
Well, as long as it's not affecting a, no, as long as it's not affecting a GA. Fine. But this is a very useful table, guys. And look at it and play with it sometime. Take your qualification and list all the ELOs and go down with all the courses and see how they interact. You find quite often you're doing a course here that has no impact whatsoever on that ELO. Why are you doing it? And then you can find where you're totally overloading guys by giving them stuff that's really not required. It helps a lot with that. Here's the exercise we do. Then 4, I just want to go through. This is again now your resourcing and sustainable. Your level of selection, your number of students. Again, you see, you're taking in 300 students, and really you've only got facilities to handle 100. In other words, you're not going to get good graduates going out. Your selection admission of students. You take them in particularly, and you know they're going to fail before you take them in, but The staff responsible are professionally and technically orientated. We can't lay it down, but it says that registration with Ecsa is appropriate, provides the norm. So the worst you can get is if you've got no staff registered, would be a concern. But once identification engineering work comes in, then it'll become a problem. But what strategy you have for academic recruitment of staff? Is the responsible suitably qualified? I mentioned the university where we took accreditation. It's great, they'd lost all their staff. There was only one guy left. Number of academic support staff is sufficient for the program. And this is becoming quite a problem in South Africa. Battling to get staff. You find that the traditional universities now, the departments that are doing well have a terrific amount of support from industry, where they subvent the salaries and stuff like that. Average staff, I have a range of specialities. Staff research profile, appropriate research development, allocation and resources for the school and department, particularly here that the university provides assistance to you to do. One university I know, they get 2 days a week off for their own research and their own job. 2 days out. So they only lecture for 3 days, and those 2 days are full-time. One guy at one of the universities, his private company's got a turnover over 200 million a year that he runs outside. A lot of that money, admittedly, comes back into you because he uses a lot of that for his research funds, funding his masters and doctor's students. Budgetaries are okay. We watch that very carefully. You particularly here, you see the staff budget is stationary, doesn't go. That now starts becoming a concern. Laboratories dying, there's no new equipment. The computers were last replaced 10 years ago. And then you comment on this, and eventually you say, sorry, you've now got to do something with it, like I mentioned earlier with the laboratories, got sold and said, slush, we're withdrawing your accreditation because the guys aren't getting it. The office teaching laboratory accommodation equipment is adequate. I can tell you, as recent as 10 years ago, staff didn't have computers in their offices at numerous institutions. And I mean, 10 years ago wasn't a long time ago. Studies on the effectiveness of the program is too bad. Now, this is something that Ecsa has never worried about in the past, but we're doing it. In other words, what you need to provide here is surveys that you've done with your students, graduates that have left, and with the companies that employ them. Are they cut? And it's not a massive thing you've got to do. It's as simple as how they're coping outside. Were they fully equipped to be able to do this job? What was missing? You know, a simple form like that you get your graduates and a good place to use it is your industrial advisors to use them. But this is very important. Let me tell you, at ABIT in America, this is almost their number one requirement. Unless you've got, and these things can cost them up to $2 million to do. It's crazy, but they're this is for sustainability and stuff. And then this is very important. Where's academic program for students offered? Development. Staff responsible are adequately qualified. Funding, realistic criteria, and again, quality assurance. There's one year I've lost. Oh, that's awful. That there's adequate provision for staff to develop and to get the additional qualification and stuff. It's somewhere here. Right, the evidence against criterion 4. Mentioned the surveys. And there's a list of staff indicators, academic indicators. This is the table for your cohorts. We haven't got any of these yet. The table for the staff, the FETs, your equivalents, what ratings you have, your entries, how many you've had with the different categories. I think we need to spend time on that. Table 8 is the staff teaching the program. That's very important to get titled to. And as I said, I was talking earlier about this publications. One engineer publication here is almost equal to 20 on the admin side, on the social side. It was very interesting. This particular university, I don't want to mention names, one of their VCs is now an engineer, and he's managed to introduce that they get, I think they get 5 times the points for one of their papers against one of the other papers. So at least they're doing something about it. And then the staff tables, I don't think we need to spend time on that. And then the financial resources. Again, you see capital going down, you see operating costs running down, and straight away, and really, when I'm a team leader, I always speak to the HOD first at the end, say, what do you want me to put in your report? Because we've done many a times like that where the lab capital equipment had done that. So we put it heavily in the report and actually eventually gave them a deficiency, and then they got the money and they fixed it. So yeah, it's, to me, that accreditation is collegial. And I'm not saying management's bad or anything, but we need to get together and we can help with certain things, you can help with others. So an accredited visit, we're after the same thing, good graduates. It should never be us and you, or them and us, or fighting amongst each other. It's a collegial thing. What else have I got? This is the criteria 5, as I mentioned, the follow-up on previous visits, where there have been deficiencies or concerns. The approach, this is again more provided assessor training, open and professional way. Constructive criticism, comments should be made verbally to staff in the report. Notice constructive, not saying you're a bunch of bad buggers, sorry, excuse the language. Adverse findings must be documented, supported by evidence. They've got to be thoroughly, openly examined with head staff and dean as appropriate. I had a complaint recently where at day 2 they suddenly said you've got 5 deficiencies just before they were due to leave. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. It's ridiculous. And again, should be trying, can't rely on a single source. Student says this lecture is useless. You say, this lecture is useless. Hold on. Valuation technique. Use refinement, so you understand what they're up to. In a number of companies, when you arrive on site at day 0, you list your deficiencies, suspected deficiencies. At the end of day 1, you refine them down to what there is, what you've cleared, and then at the end of visit 2, you finally find them. Again, it's consequences, not symptoms. And the evaluation must be complete before we leave the site. And as I said again, all concerns and checked as many perspectives as possible. Again, my approach, if there is a problem and a problem on a particular course, I speak to HOD and then I also like to speak to the lecturer. This is what we're finding. What's the story? And then I think the next couple are provider training again, interviewing techniques. And then reporting, I wanted to spend a few minutes on this, just so that you understand that. I don't want to, this is really now team training. The report must be readable and usable by above stakeholders. These are the stakeholders. So don't go putting in a technical report there. It's got to be a verbal report that the dean, the university executive, particularly VCE, and the CHE director can understand it. So you'll notice the report format when you get it now is the main body, which is a verbal document, with a lot of verbiage in it. And then, so that's the report structure. that we do. And then you have an annexure to that, which is a template that needs to be filled in. Now, come on, man. In here, these are summaries. So, for example, here, any recommendations, for example, deficiencies of that in here, have also got to be the exact same wording in the annexure, which we're coming to now, and any wording here needs to be consistent. That's what that consistent review's job is. This is typical of the forms. Of course, it's been, and also, problem solving, and then the institution program, the definition of deficiency again, and really what we mean by deficiency. Deficiency does not comply with criteria. It is against criteria and potentially affects the quality of your graduates. We like to put comments in when it's good, things you've done well. Exercises again. There's an understanding again on deficiency. I think it's important you see this. It's a clear failure to achieve or assess an outcome, clear breach of content criteria. You've only got 10 credits of maths. Clear evidence of poor teaching and learning, or negative sustainability. Here you're starting to lose staff, not being replaced. We've got one now, and they don't even have a recruitment program on the go, or accommodation. And then a predicted course. A deficiency is a matter of team first improvement or probable cause of events leading to a potential deficiency. So that's what those two mean. So as I said, people get very upset, and I don't know how we can get management to understand. A deficiency doesn't mean the program's bad or that the university's bad. It means there's something there that needs to be fixed. And you find this is often paperwork. We were talking at lunchtime that the paperwork is insufficient. What else? The reporting is standard. Again, this is that the program is deficient in. The team is concerned that. The team comments that. And they've got to stick to, which they don't. This is a massive problem to get people to stick to that. The exit interview, this is the one at the end. The objective is to convey the findings. There are no discussions on it. Keep it short. Clarification, but no discussion. And then explain the next steps. Draft report, just to tell you, as I said, draft one's got to be in before they leave. Within the team. Draft two then goes after consistent review and all that. After that's gone through, it goes to the university for factual correctness. It then comes back and it's now labelled final, then goes off to engineering. Visit leaders report follows a similar one, but this now covers more the issues at university level. Also covers interviews with the student body and stuff, and it contains all the common concerns, deficiencies, and common from the team reports must go in there word for word. Education committee, the dean is always invited to join the meeting. Report is presented. The dean may put questions, and then it's over. They either get accredited or withdraw. This is not very common. Communication decisions. The decision letter comes to you, and it's to the university, and the outcomes are to the vice chancellor, and then copy goes to the dean and to the CHU. Time, you can see again, time, it takes at least 4 weeks or longer. And we find often it takes a lot longer than that. Conditions, this is very important. There are conditions attached to accreditation. That any substantial change needs to be communicated. And the HEQC guide is 50% of content. And any changing condition, loss of staff, reduced funding, accommodation, or anything needs to be reported to Ecsa. That's part of your condition of getting accreditation. Follow-up actions, we've covered all that. And no follow-up if you've gone to accredit until the next regular visit, if you've got anything in between. Common problems. This is the type of problems we find, not calculated according to the Ecsa spreadsheet. Credits too low, credits too high. I've got a slide on this which I'll left behind. And multipliers are totally unrealistic. Guys, these are the common things that we pick up, and it's pretty common throughout, particularly in the start. You get used to it afterwards. Graduate, no evidence, or 50% passes accepted. Or it's too complex and difficult assessment. Some guys, I told you the one, university, 172 criteria per student. Or it's only assessed in one course or in all courses. As I said, it's not good practice. Course content, no GAs, insufficient detail and too general. That's your Appendix 1, in other words, your study guides. Sorry, am I in the way? Common pitfalls for the assessors. Sorry, I've got to show this to you. Not studying the documentation thoroughly, not sticking to policy, inventing new decisions. You'd be surprised what people can invent. Looking for symptoms, not consequences. Leaving their own baggage at home. We had one guy, I'll never forget, I refused to have him on a visit with me where I'm on. He used to be very pedantic about a rubric. When finally a project, there's got to be a rubric. Check that, check this, check that. Anyway, we went on an accreditation visit to his university, and his project had 70%. I said, where's the rubric? He hasn't got time for that rubbish. But he was insisting everybody else does it. Not triangulating, jumping to conclusion, and this non-collegial approach. Really, guys, this is working together. And I said, I want the HOD and the staff available. Not sticking to program and no team spirit. And then I've had this before where there was dissension in the team. One of the ladies was eventually crying and all sorts of things. And then the appendices. We've got them there I've got to go back to slides for all the others. Right, guys, that's what I had planned to cover with you. I hope you found it useful. And please, if I can help with anything, give me a shout.